We're about nearing the end of the season one part of our journey. And when it comes to rock bottom, essentially the penultimate episode before the season finale, yes, I'm counting Cold Earth and False Start as a twofer, although I am not reviewing it as such, seeing that it wasn't presented that way. Essentially, Rock Bottom acts as the last piece of the episodic puzzle. Yes, Ghost Channel is right before it, but Ghost Channel really highlights everything about the Code Lyoko that will be. And Rock Bottom is the last episode of what it is. An episodic piece with one off characters that can often be jettisoned with the plot not interchanging from one another. Rock Bottom is the last episode in which this implies that the episodes won't technically matter. Yes, there'll be plenty of one off episode characters throughout the whole thing. But this is really the first sense of a one off's wasted opportunity. Not only because the interaction is totally jettisoned into the shoot, but for what Code Lyoko is destined to become in just 3 episodes from now, this is seriously a missed opportunity. As for the episode itself, though, for it being the last truly episodic episode of the series, it shows the best example of the non serialized formula. Rock Bottom's Xana attack upon first watching the episode, you'll be confused as to what's happening. It doesn't really explain itself or translate itself into anything really noticeable on first glance. But after watching it now for the fifth time or sixth, I can now conclusively say Xana's pretty much turning the school and the city in which the show is taking place into a giant sinkhole. Yeah, that's the Xana attack. And it's pretty gnarly too. Tension is real, especially later. And the Lyoko scenes that set up this episode are okay. It's not like the episode that will come after this one, especially not, and not like the episode that came before it in routine. The Lyoko attack is rather average for the most part. Just a simple get through it tower deactivated deal, with the real world stuff being the tension setter. And oddly enough, before the Lyoko stuff starts going, is the most interesting part of the episode itself. Mainly because we have a new character, a one shot by the name of Samantha, who happens to only be the second African American as part of the cast. And sadly, we never see her or have mention of her again. She's a delinquent transfer student who's seriously having problems, you know, doing the thing, being a good student, that is. But Odd's got something for her, a crush, in fact. But thanks to her, he gets into a little bit of trouble trying to steal a 2 GB laptop. Funny, the laptop that I'm currently using right now is a 2 GB laptop. But you have to understand, this was 2 GB laptops in 2002. That was a lot of data, and they were super expensive. Also, note Samantha shares Sissy's voice actor. You can tell because when she starts yelling, it starts drifting into the sissy voice. But thanks to the giant sinkhole, she gets trapped in the computer room after failing to make her escape with the goods. It's up to Rourke and Odd to bust her out of there, which they do, using a pulley system. And, of course, Rourke showing why he's the leader type and why he's the athlete. Meanwhile, Yumi gets caught in the middle of it on the way to the lab and sees the devastation throughout the city. It's pretty gnarly. It's just too bad the Ryoko attack isn't as good as the actual attack is. And yes, Jim being stupid and trapping himself in a clothes dresser is also a total victory of stupidity. But believe us, this attack's a good one. Believe me, it's pretty good. And the resolution for getting Sam out of trouble also works. But also, the king does a good job at calling Odd out on his BS. Having to explain himself and his situation, unfortunately, when the weight gets too big thanks to the Santa attacks. This is kind of Odd's best episode early, but sadly, Odd after this point becomes a girl chasing pseudo womanizer when having Sam around as part of the principal cast, occasionally getting into trouble just like Sissy does, would have been the better writing choice, but sadly, again, Samantha is dropped, much like some future episodes and even some episodes of the current season. There are some missed opportunities here, and Rock Bottom has a giant one, especially for Odd's character. It doesn't really put him in the best light, and it really doesn't give him anybody to bounce out of. Seeing that Yumi and Oric have the will they won't they disaster, and Jeremy and Aelita in the future will have the ultimate example of a toxic relationship between middle schoolers. It's kind of unfair that Odd gets left in the dust with nothing for all the kindness and sacrifice that he's willing to do. He deserves a lady friend of his own to boggle his mind with. It's it's really bad. But this episode isn't. It's a 4 out of 6 because of the lackluster Lyoko attack that fits with a very good real world attack and the missed opportunities with Samantha. This really brings it down a bit, makes it the worst, makes the last truly non serialized episode come off weaker than it should be. But next week, every Ryoko fan and their mama knows this one. And if you've never seen Code Lyoko before and had an interaction with a Lyoko fan, Ghost Channel is the episode they will most recommend to you. Next week, I talk about it. And oh, by the way, this episode has a question mark in the title. For no reason than it just exists. But Ghost Channel certainly doesn't. And Ghost Channel highlights one of the best episodes of the series. But we'll talk about that next week. Find peace in your own nirvana. I'll see you then.